Welcome to Simplify to Scale, a show dedicated to helping you scale a high impact and high profit business that you love without all of the complexity and chaos that can keep you trapped in the day-to-day. I'm your host, Krista Grasso, and with decades of scaling experience, I know what actually works and what's just hype. So if you are done with all of the one-size-fits-all scaling advice and all of the overnight success promises, and instead you want proven practical strategies that will help you simplify operations, elevate your leadership, amplify profits, and scale sustainably, let's dive in and get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Simplify to Scale show. You are going to love today's conversation, or at least I know I certainly will. I have a new friend on the podcast with me today, Anna Lozano, and we are going to be talking all about what it looks like to take a business from idea to scale to sale in 6 years. And she has quite a fascinating story. And the reason why I absolutely love what she does, and I'm so excited to be talking today, is she is also someone who is super passionate about the blend of strategy and soul in business and looking at all of the parts of ourselves that make us a success, not just the kind of tactical ones. So Anna, welcome. I'm so happy you're here.
Oh, I'm so grateful to be here. I love how we met. I love how this came together, and it's truly a pleasure.
All right. So give everyone just a little bit of your backstory, how you got started, just so you know. I've always read people's bios at the beginning of these episodes, and I'm finding I'm loving it so much better when you tell everyone your story and your bio. So I'm turning it over to you to kick us off.
Oh my gosh, so good. I had Beth Nidick on my podcast recently, and she is such a storyteller, just like her mutual friend, Chantel Adams, I believe.
Yep.
She's so phenomenal at storytelling. And so this question, I'm always like, which story do I want to bring forth? Because there's so many stories. So basically, I came to Canada as a Polish immigrant, and I was taught to do the traditional safe, secure path, as so many listeners probably were as well. And that's what I did. So I studied really hard. I got amazing grades. I got into a top business school and thought I was going to go and do the safe and secure thing, which is find a corporate career in sales and marketing, climb the ladder, eventually be in the C-suite. And I got to corporate. I looked around this tiny cubicle, no windows, people like heads down working on their computers. I was like, oh my gosh, this is soul sucking. This is not for me. And it really was this moment of surrender, of going against everything that I thought I was going to do, everything my parents thought I was going to do. And I just decided to raise my hands up and surrender to God and say, you know, what am I meant for? What am I meant to do in this lifetime? And it's important to know that in those moments of surrender, it's when we have to take a pause and we have to be available for the responses to come through. Oftentimes we ask and then we continue rushing through whatever it is that we're doing, and we don't give ourselves the spaciousness to hear. And in that moment, a doorway opened and I was introduced to the world of network marketing, which I giggle because, you know, I told my dad, I'm like, I basically quit my corporate career, which you invested, you know, how many tens of thousands of dollars for business school to build a pyramid scheme, you know, and he was like, what are you doing? And that was a whole other thing. But, you know, I wasn't raised to know network marketing. And so I saw it as a business opportunity. I get to consume a product that I love for my own health and wellness, and I get to share it. And through sharing it, I get to build a business. And so really, this was my gateway into entrepreneurship, my gateway into personal development. And I realized that I'm pretty good at business. And so with that energy, I scaled that business. And I say scaled, but you are really a brand partner of the company. But I always use business terms because that's what resonates with me and most women that I speak to. And we built that to the top of the company. We got the opportunity to travel the world and speak on stages and really dove deep into personal development. And so when I had my first daughter, affirmations were really a part of what I was doing. Mindfulness, meditation, conscious growth and expansion. And I decided with a business partner to launch a company called Love Powered Co., which if you're from Canada, it really gained a lot of brand recognition, brand equity. And we So basically what it was is to raise the next generation of mindful leaders through the power of affirmations, through the power of mindfulness with physical products. And so we got to work, knew nothing about manufacturing, knew nothing about product development and shipping and finance and all the things. And so it felt like business school all over again, but you're actually doing it versus learning from case studies. And it was such a beautiful, intentional company, a powerful vision that we held. We actually had to scale it through COVID, which was a whole other world of that I speak to founders. I'm like, can you guys believe we actually grew a business through a global pandemic when everything was absolutely shut down and inaccessible? And so we did that. And then came a beautiful opportunity to exit at the end of 2022. So that's what we did. And since then, to be honest, exiting a company, which this is a broad overview, so you understand my essence, but I know you'll want to go deep into certain parts of the story. But with the exit came grief, came celebration, came this wave of emotion that I didn't know was possible after you do something like exit a company. And so it really brought me back to my inner world. I spent the last 3 years really getting to know myself again. Like, who is Anna without this identity of being the co-founder of this company, who's not scaling a product-based business currently, who had an exit, whose children are now older because we started the brand when my first daughter was 9 months old. She's turning 10 this month. And so it was a whole reinvention of self that I dove into. And the one thing that I am so proud of is that I didn't rush to the next thing. And you and I were just speaking, you're a 6-2 sacral generator. I'm a 4-6 sacral generator. We have this energy that we have. And so, you know, my mind wanted to go and create the very next thing, but my soul just knew it's time to pause, and it's time to, whatever it is you do create as the next chapter is going to be from a completely different energetic frequency. Now, when I say this, the intention of the product company was always pure. And this is why we had the successes that we did. But sometimes my energy that it was built on did not have this awareness that it has today. So here I am today, completely rediscovered and in a new identity. So let me know where you'd want to go. But that's kind of where my story is. It brings us to now.
So to me, I find the stories just so incredibly fascinating, because I feel like when we all look at where we are today, where we are like right in this moment as you're listening to this, most of us had such a winding road to get here. And it is so rare that I find that someone was like, this was exactly what I knew I was going to be doing in this moment when I was 10 years old, and I followed this straight path and I got exactly there. We all do this big winding, meandering road, and yet we always end up right where we're meant to be. Yes. And I do think that's so important to keep in mind, because if you're at a point where that windy road is feeling especially windy in a not positive way right now, it is just part of the path that's clearing the way for whatever it is that you're supposed to do next. And it's so interesting, because I grew up in product as well. All my initial scaling experience came out of two coffee shops. So
I didn't actually know this.
I know. And I scaled a global jewelry and accessory brand. I had that brand for 20 years. I actually just recently tabled that a little bit to focus more on the service side of what I do, but I am bringing it back. So I hinted at this, guys. Pay attention, 2027, there's big things coming. But that being said, I want to just talk for a moment about the challenges and the differences in learning how to scale in a product-based business, because we talk so much about service on this show, but it is a lesson unlike anything else in this world, because you touched on it. You've got inventory management and manufacturing, and you've got logistics, and you've got shipping issues, and there are so many facets and moving parts that go into a product-based business. So what were some of those big challenges or lessons learned that you faced as you were learning and scaling this out?
Oh my gosh. And you're bringing me back. I do have to add this too, which is so fascinating. Once you exit a product-based business, I don't know if you had this experience, but for me, I was like, never again am I growing a product-based business. So fast forward 3 years, guess what I'm starting to build behind the scenes? A product-based business.
I mean, product-based businesses, you kind of have to love them. Like
You have to love
and there's
them.
something about having something tangible and physical and seeing people wearing it or using it and taking pictures with it. Like it's like a feeling like you don't get the same way in a service-based business.
Yes, 100%. And I feel like, I dabbled in the coaching space, and mind you, I love supporting women to go after their dreams, but it's a completely different feeling. And if you've had the experience of holding your idea in physical form, like for me, that is the ultimate feeling of being a founder and being an entrepreneur. And so I took a little pause, but in that pause, I became obsessed with pickleball. And so here we go, creating a pickleball brand. But to answer the question, it's so interesting. Like you go to business school and you do all these case studies and you feel like you're prepared for the real world, and it's nothing like you learn theoretically. Literally, it's hypothetical. And so when you get into this world, for me, though, I always say that the most important work we can do is on ourselves. And for me, that looks like mindset work, and it looks like frequency and energetics work. And I believe you need that foundation in order to scale something that has longevity, that will be enjoyed for years to come, that really is this beautiful process for you as the founder, but also for everyone who comes in touch with that very thing that you get to create. And so for me, it was always this mindset of, I get to do this. Like when I show up in this frequency of appreciation, yes, there's going to be ups and downs. Yes, there's going to be roller coasters. Yes, there's going to be shutdowns. There's going to be, delays. There's going to be chaos, but it's part of the journey. But as a founder, if we can show up every single day in this energy, this frequency of appreciation, and appreciation actually holds the same frequency as love, which is the highest vibrational frequency there is. And so in this appreciation, that I get to think a thought and I get to bring it to reality. Like that to me is an ultimate gift, because I do believe we are creators. And so showing up in that, everything that comes forth that needs to be solved, because really entrepreneurship is just a whole bunch of problems that need to be solved day in, day out, then the path feels easier. It's not that it is easier. It simply feels easier. And I do believe now, and I feel so many of us went through this era of hustle, hard work, proving ourselves, burning out, all of it. The reason why we had to move through it, especially as female founders, one is because that's all we knew. We didn't have a lot of evidence as we were, building businesses over the last decades to say, okay, she's done it in a way that feels like ease and flow. She's experiencing this prosperity on all, levels of her life, in her family, in her relationship, in her business, in her personal life, in her health. There wasn't much evidence. And I feel like today, building business in 2026, we get this privilege to do it a different way, if we choose to, because everything starts with awareness and then it goes into a decision and then into a commitment. But I commit that the next thing that I build is not going to be from this energetic frequency of hustle, burnout, proving myself, really sacrificing time from my family, from the things that I love to do, from my own health. Like we don't have to do it from this energetic frequency of sacrifice. We get to do it a different way. And so all of the things that would come up were simply problems that needed to be solving. At the same time, they were all of these skills that needed to be learned, because my zone of genius is sales and marketing, collaborations, and partnerships. If we look at my human design, that makes so much sense. The one thing that I also like to pat myself on the back is somehow I was operating out of my human design for a long period of time. And, if you look at your human design, I don't know if you talk about this on your podcast a lot, maybe we can do, wherever you want to go with that specifically. Yeah. But it's when you read your human design, when you read your astrology, when you read, any of those tests that are online that you get to do, many of us would be like, wow, I make so much sense to me. And that's actually where you want to be, because it means that you've been operating intuitively out of your own alignment, out of your own unique blueprint. If you're completely not there yet, it's an opportunity to be like, okay, maybe this would feel better for me, and I get to do it in a different way. So as we're building this product-based business, I realize I'm operating out of my zone of genius. My business partner, who is a creative, she was a designer, writer, she was in her zone of genius. That is the foundationally what we did extremely well. What we didn't do well at the very beginning, especially, is what we should have brought in a fractional CFO from the very beginning. Finances, numbers, profit and loss, all those things were not our zone of genius, and yet we tried to do it. And so when it came to the exit, our books were a mess. It took us a year to really align everything and make it pristine so that we can move forward with the exit. So that's one lesson that I would be like, who do you need to bring forth? And yes, it might seem like a large investment, but that investment is going to save you time, money, peace of mind if you do it earlier than you feel like you should. And every single founder, I just did a little series interviewing other founders who've had either exits or built 7+ figure brands on my Instagram. And I'm like, what would you do differently? And they all said I would bring in people earlier. I would hire earlier. I would build my team earlier. And that's something that I would say as well. That was a big, big learning, is like, we tried to hold on for too long. And another example with that would be outsourcing our shipping and fulfillment. You know, we were picking and packing from our basement for a long time. And I have photos on my Instagram of like thousands and thousands of boxes going out. And then slowly but surely, we brought in a team to work from the home, and then we moved it out of house. So that's something that I would bring in also much sooner, is like, allow yourself to be taken care of in those areas that bring stress, that bring anxiety, that move you away from your zone of genius in your business.
Oh my gosh, I'm having flashbacks of this. I remember we signed on with a sales rep, and the first day with the sales rep, we sold thousands of pieces of jewelry. And it was a company called Wantable. I don't even know if they're still around. But they had bought literally thousands of pieces of jewelry. And we were like, yes. And then we're like, how on earth are we going to pack and ship this and get this out the door? Yeah. It was a magnitude of scale that was like, I don't know, like 30x what we had been doing.
Wow.
And so all of a sudden, I mean, we literally had every family member, every friend imaginable in our kitchen, which we had turned into the studio, trying to get this stuff out the door. And then we realized, wait a minute. This is not, I mean, it was never a small business, but we still treated it like one. And we realized, okay, we need to figure this out and actually run a scalable business instead of keep trying to grow a small business.
Oh, and I love that. That's a huge mindset piece right there. Like, and it all comes down to the founder and the mindset that they hold. I love that.
Absolutely. So I love these lessons learned that you're sharing. And when you think about getting yourself to an exit. And I'm so curious to dig a little deeper into this, because one of the things when I look back, my lessons learned and things that I wish I did differently is I've tended to hold on to things for too long and I let them just fizzle out while I shift focus. And so I've never, even though I've built, grown, and scaled 8 businesses, I've actually never sold any of the businesses. And I have reimagined, I've taken assets and moved them around. I've done different things, but I frequently hold on too long saying, I'll get back to it. I'll get back to it. I'll get back to it. And I don't make the decision until it's so late that it would take too much energy to like shift focus back and do it. And so for somebody who maybe is more of the hold on too long kind of person versus I see an opportunity here and I want to actually sell this. Like, what are some of the lessons you learned around that could help someone prepare for, be ready for, and really take the most kind of opportunity they find in that sale?
So good. So I think there's 2 pieces to this. And every time I love to share in 2 parts. Like, one is strategy, one is soul. But I do feel soul comes first. So what I mean by that is, as founder, your business can really only expand to the proportion of your vision, your nervous system and the frequency that you bring to the table. So because we had both, my co-founder and I, been really invested into our own personal growth for a number of years before launching this company, this really supported because the vision was there. The vision was always to launch, scale, and sell, but something that was going to continue to live on and have impact in the world. So as you can see, like that feels like a very expansive vision. And so we were both connected to that from day one. And when I speak to nervous system, and now this is something like we were not talking about this in 2016. And so I would not be able to put a word on it in 2016. But when we move into this big vision, when we hold this big vision, it's really important that we do the nervous system work around it. And what I mean by that is really we're wired for survival. And so to hold these big visions, more often than not, it feels unsafe for us, for our nervous system. And so the work becomes that expansion work to be able to hold more, hold more, hold more. And as I was mentioning before we hopped on, I just had an interview with Gay Hendricks of The Big Leap, and he calls that the upper limit, right? Like the upper limit, the ceiling. And we reach these ceilings because of our capacity to hold more, because of how we feel in expansion, because we're wired for safety, the abundance, the millions, the sale, the vision may start to feel unsafe and feel threatening until we consciously do the work to expand ourselves. And so that is like, you can hold a big vision mentally, but really, if you don't do the work somatically, you as the founder will self-sabotage at some point, whether it's sabotaging relationships, opportunities, things are that presenting themselves on the daily of saying, hey, you have this vision and you want to sell. Well, here's the gift on a silver platter. But because you cannot hold the bigness of it, it feels insecure, it feels not safe, you sabotage. And so the work really is allowing yourself, and you do this consciously. I mean, you can do this through breath work, you can do this through meditation, you can do this by simply committing to expand because you're safe in expansion. And so for me in meditation, I feel this expansion. You can see even when I say the word, and I've said it so many times, I'm actually curious to the listeners, like, how are you feeling every time I say this word? You can see my shoulders go back. And like my hands spread apart. If you're watching the video, it's like, this is expansion, but it needs to feel expansive in your body versus constrictive, right? When it feels unsafe, it feels like, oh, you put your shoulders forward. Like for me, it feels like heaviness in my chest and in my upper back. So it comes down to like feeling into it. And, one of the comments we made yesterday with Gay Hendricks is like, we overcomplicate subconscious reprogramming. We overcomplicate nervous system expansion. We overcomplicate it as humans. Really comes down to a decision. And then like, how do you feel? And so if every day you can go into quiet, whether it's meditation or just sitting there and like feeling into yourself, stepping into this vision, like physically, most importantly, feeling, most importantly, you have it in your mind, it'll all connect together. Okay. So holding this bigness of a sale, like that is a lot to hold. And I feel like men with their bro energy can be like, oh yeah, bro, I'm going to sell this for $2 billion. Like many women, like we got this work to do, we really do. And yet then this makes us so much more powerful. I just love women. Like we're such natural nurturers. We hold, we support, we want each other to collaborate and grow and expand. And when we do this work, it becomes like 1,000-fold more powerful and contagious, and it becomes this ripple effect. So that's one. Founder holding this massive vision, but holding it in a way that feels expansive, you feel worthy with it, and you're able to move towards it because you're not self-sabotaging in the process because you haven't done the work. That's one. Number two is the strategy. So the strategy for me, like we knew we wanted to sell. What we didn't know is the timing of the sale. And so what happened was, this is actually an awesome story of synchronicities coming together. So we're in the middle of the pandemic. We went through all the shutdowns. We went through unable to receive inventory from overseas because their factories were shut down. And so in those moments, we had to solve problems. So one of the ways we did that is we really focused on our retail partners and moving customers to our retail partners because our e-commerce store was completely sold out and we were unable to get inventory. So we were working with our partners. Chapters Indigo, which is kind of like the Barnes & Noble in Canada, was one of our big partners. So we moved a lot of sales to them as well as our boutique partners. And so I have this crazy idea, as I usually do for my family. I'm like, why don't we sell everything we own from Ontario, Canada, and head west? West, we have nature, we can be outdoors, we can be out in the wild while, the cities are shut down. And so we decide to sell everything we own and move across the country to British Columbia, Canada. And as we're going to a kangaroo farm one day, I had this intuitive hit that Jillian Harris, which I would say is one of the biggest Canadian influencers who has the biggest impact on product-based businesses in Canada. She's a former bachelorette. She lives where I was driving through. And so I literally surrender my hands. I'm like, God, Spirit, Universe, if we're meant to partner with Jillian Harris, make it fast, make it now, make it fun. And I guess her email address and I suggest that we collaborate on a paper-based product for her Jilly box. She writes back within 8 minutes. She says there may be an opportunity to create a journal together for next fall's Jilly box, which would be then 2021 fall. I said, great, let's get to work. So we got to work. September 2021, we launched this collaboration journal. So for us as a small business, it's 16,000 units of product that we get to birth into the world. And I said to my partner, this is the time to start exploring the sale. So timing really matters. I knew if we were going to sell, we wanted to sell at our high. We wanted to sell when our brand had the most exposure, when it had the most brand equity. And that's what we did. So September 2021, we began the process. We actually started with hiring a business broker. And the business broker was just bringing in opportunities that were not aligned with us. We really felt into the founder. Would they be able to continue growing this business? Does it align with what they're currently doing? Does it align with the communities that they're serving? And we went through this whole 9-month process until we found the perfect buyer. And so December 2022, after all the due diligence, SOPs, all the things, we handed the company over officially.
Amazing. There's so much I love about that story, but I do really, 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 one of the things I just admire so much about your work and the way that you approach things is the fact that you very much blend the two facets.
Yeah.
Because I think to me, that's where the most alignment comes in. Strategy, like you can have strategy all day long and it'll get you short-term success, but it frequently doesn't get you long-term success if you don't also have that soul element. Yet if you're just so focused in the soul that you're not actually tapping into the strategy and the timing and those pieces of it, I find that there is this incongruence and you typically aren't seeing the results that you want. So I think that's just something you do so masterfully. And I loved the story of how it all came together.
Thank you so much. It really is. And especially now more than ever, like just so many things are shifting and they're shifting astrologically and they're shifting like the planet of the frequency and like all these things are happening in our favor. And I truly believe this. And that's how I show up every day. And obviously it's been a 16-year journey to get here, but I do believe that if everyone taps back in first, all of the strategies will come together and likely even better than we could have ever imagined, because this is when the miracles appear. They've always been there, but we've never had enough spaciousness for them to truly come forth.
I love that. And I want to circle back to one of the things that you were talking about when you were sharing some of the lessons learned about the team and about staying in your zone of genius and bringing in the right people around you. And we were, before we started recording, having a fun conversation about our human design and how we make decisions and how we initiate or not and respond to things. And so one of the things I'm so curious to hear your perspective on is I do absolutely believe that we need the right people on our team to support us. And I think sometimes people look at that based on role and on function, But I don't know if everyone always thinks about that versus strengths and who they are at their core, their true zone of genius, versus finding other people to complement that. Do you
Mm.
see also where people feel like they just have to master this skill and they push so hard at something that really is just not in alignment for them?
Oh, all the time. And I really do feel that's how the evidence that we've seen, like this is what we have to do. I feel like that's been the wiring. And I do believe it's shifting. I had an amazing conversation with a dear friend of mine who owns a company called the Light Academy. And she said, I have this amazing woman that works for me, but she's not in the right role. And that's all that it took really understanding who she was, what her zone of genius was, her human design, her astrology, and shifting roles. And when she shifted roles, this woman lit up and she was more successful in their company than ever before. And so I think this is really important as leaders too, is one is knowing yourself. I mean, you can't do this work and train your teams to be in their zone of genius, in their highest alignment, if that's not the work that you're doing. So start with you always. Like if this conversation is new to you, I mean, start with taking a simple human design test online and then take those human design results and put it into your chat GPT and say, analyze this for me and give me areas of opportunity where I can function more in alignment in each area of my life. So in my health, in my business, in my family, with my children, whatever else you want to insert in there, and just start to bring awareness to these things. I love to do that with my astrology as well. It's like, it's not just your sun, but it's like sun, moon, rising. Like, wow, so fascinating. And then you pair it together. And then there's all these other tests that are like corporate tests. I can't think of any of the names right now, but Myers-Briggs, maybe if I'm saying correctly, but there's so many different tests that reveal more about our personality. When you blend it together, you can actually logically understand yourself, and then the work becomes to bring it in. So to create that alignment with mind, body, soul, so that you can show up every single day in full alignment. And full alignment is really where the miracles and magic happen, because from an energetic standpoint, you are now aligned, which means your energy that's vibrating out into the universe becomes an energetic match for the things that are a complement to the energy that you're in. But if you're in this energy of hustle, of chaos, of struggle, of hard, well, guess what? You're attracting more of that. And so if you bring it back to your team, the people that you're surrounded by, is like, we can support them to realign and come back into the spaces and places they're meant to be on in your company. And when they're in alignment, they're going to do it more efficiently, more productively, with more joy, which is the goal.
Absolutely. And I personally love human design, and I resonated with so much. Like learning more about myself explained so much to me, and it makes it actually easier for me to work with my team because I can explain to them why I need things certain way or how to best work with me and get the best results from me and vice versa. But I think one of the most transformational ways that this has kind of shown up for me is in how I partner with my clients. So not all of my clients are super open to everything. So I work with people differently, but for those who are more on the kind of woo side of things, which I love my woo clients so much. But for example, I get a lot of projectors, and the way that I work with and support projectors is very different than the way I work with and support generators, because they need different things. They show up differently. The team they need around them is different. The work they tend to do and what motivates or demotivates them is very different. And so whether it's human design for you or whatever it is for you, I think having some kind of anchor that you use for understanding yourself, your team, your clients, and those around you, I just find it to be so beneficial so that you are really meeting people where they're at and you're getting what you need as well. Do you do something like that also?
Oh my gosh. So it's so fascinating. And we're focused on human design. Most of my clients are projectors. And it makes so much sense because projectors, they need spaciousness, depth, when they're fully aligned, it's that expertise, that wisdom, that sage energy that comes through. And you and I are get shit done. Like, we move energy as generators. And so it makes the perfect complement. And then the other side of that, I work with a lot of manifestors who are visionaries. And so visionaries who should actually not be executing on the ideas that they receive, that they download, that they create. It's the perfect complement. And so I actually don't work with a lot of generators because we hold a very similar frequency. But if I were to really do the numbers, it'd be projectors and manifestors. And like, how fascinating is that? And so when I do a discovery call, we talk about human design all the time. I'm like, well, yeah, of course, you're attracted to my energy. You're a projector. It makes sense, right? So I love that.
Oh my gosh. All right. So tell us more about your work. Tell people where they can find you. Tell them about your amazing podcast. Just tell us all the things so they could get to know you and your magic a little better.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, I launched a podcast. It's called The Prosperity Playground. I've been having so much fun with that. I host founder retreats in Mexico. So that's a big piece of my heart and work. And they're really strategy and soul. Like, you can see that's something that I'm so passionate about. And then behind the scenes, working on a pickleball brand. So it's going to be product and experience based. And, the interesting thing is I'm sitting in trust, and this is me coaching myself, that it's going to launch when it's meant to launch. I don't have a timeline on it. I'm not rushing the process. I really want to disrupt and innovate and just have so much fun along the way. So it'll launch when it launches, but it's in the works behind the scenes. Oh, and Instagram. So I'm mostly on Instagram _Anna Lozano.
Amazing. All right. So I feel like we could just talk for days and days and days, but if you leave the listeners with any final tips, any final things to be thinking about as they're looking at blending strategy and soul, making sure what they're doing is really aligned for them, what would you have to leave them with?
So good. All of the answers live within you. So just take a deep breath in. I love box breath. Let's take a deep breath in, like 4, 3, 2, 1. We hold the breath. 4, 3, 2, 1. We exhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. We hold. And in that spaciousness, all of our answers live. Everything that we're wondering about, that we're curious about, that we're frustrated with, that we're excited about, all of it lives within. And so take those pause moments throughout the day, tune back in, and then from that aligned, grounded energy, take that next action.
Amazing. And one final question. I ask every guest this, and I'm so curious to hear what you have to say. But how do you scale smarter and keep things lean in your business or businesses?
Yes. Always surround yourself with the best people. I get it. You might think it's too early in your process, but when you do, that allows you to stay in your zone of genius. You have people around you in their zone of genius. And that's the result of taking this decision. Everything you said.
Amazing. Anna, thank you so much for being here. I hope all of you got as much out of this episode as I did. We will see you again next week. If you are a visionary founder ready to get yourself out of the day-to-day operations of your business and scale in a much more simple, sustainable way, I have just the thing. Register to join me for my Scale Simpler workshop at scalesimpler.com. In it, I break down the hidden barriers that keep you trapped in the day-to-day of your business and what to do to finally extract yourself once and for all so things do not keep coming back onto your plate. And if you're someone who partners with founders as their right-hand advisor, consultant, or fractional, I invite you to explore our scaling certification and licensing programs at strategicopsinstitute.com.